Perfect. Welcome, everybody. We're starting the recording. That's perfect. Welcome, everybody, to Her Stories Untold. My name is Traei, and I'm the founder of Her Stories Untold, a global book project sharing different, empowering, and inspiring stories of women around the globe from all walks of life. Now, the reason that this project was created is because I realized that there were so many women out there that have stories to share, journeys that have been taken, but not realizing their significance and importance. This project is to open to all women and transgender women in the globe. If you have a story of a journey of how you came to be, whom, and where you are today, please do check out dot, herstoriesuntold.com. Now, the purpose of this global book project is to empower, uplift, and inspire other women. Before we begin our talk today, I want to acknowledge that the land on which I live and work is the traditional and unceded territory of the Kripalu Nation and lies within the shared traditional territories of Tsleil-Waututh, Katsiap, Musqueam, Squamish, Kikit, and Stolo First Nations. And I also want to acknowledge and bring to the attention that today is National Self-Care Day. So National Self-Care Day is observed in the US on April 5th each year. It's a day dedicated to taking care of yourself and prioritizing your own well being. The day is a reminder to take a break from the stresses of daily life and focus on self care. So essentially, yeah, this is a day that you should acknowledge yourself, give yourself a pat, and really take care of yourself. And I want to welcome our very special guest here, Sandi Gold, and just to share a snippet about Sandi here. In her book, I Choose Love, Sandi Gold chronicles her transformative journey from having an inoperable, life threatening brain tumor at the age of 32 to her miraculous recovery, followed by decades of physical, emotional challenges, including breast cancer, financial struggles, and a dysfunctional and unsupportive family. Now, driven by her determination to survive, she learned to speak to her body and embrace love as the ultimate path to healing in this inspirational page turner book, and I Sandy has really demonstrated in many ways that she opened her heart and helped her body to thrive, right? So I think yeah. I also want to quote is it Catherine Cryer? She's an Emmy winning journalist and New York Times bestselling author. What she said about Sandy's book is that she quotes, "A brief encounter can impact the rest of your life. A few days with Sandy when she faced her terminal diagnosis forever altered my perspectives on life, death, love, and the meaning we impart to our time on earth." So, welcome here.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Sandy.
Hi, how are you, Traei?
I am good. I am good. So lovely. Thank you for being here. Thank you for writing your beautiful book and choosing love, choosing to empower, inspire, and uplift, all the women and men from all the people around the globe. So thank you for being here. Um, I wanted to ask you, why do you want to share your story?
Right from the day I was diagnosed, actually, the day after, I should say, I was sent to a hospital to be tested, and not one person spoke to me about even having a brain tumor. And I was sent home without giving any direction except to go see your doctor the following week. And I just could not believe that there were people that had just found out they're going to die that are being treated like this. And that there were people who, did they not know that it was very difficult to hear that you're going to die, that weren't there to help me? So I knew right from the very beginning that things were not right. Things needed to be changed in some way. People needed to be aware that what's in front of them so they didn't have the surprises that I had.
That's and and that's the reason that kind of triggered you. So I guess and you wrote about choosing love, right? I kind of want to start with that, like
Okay, sure.
what is love? Like what does it mean to receive love, give love and in all the different ways of love and in different cultures, right? So I did some digging and research, and in terms of love, they say that it's a magical force that turns our hearts into fluttering butterflies and our minds into a whirlwind of emotions, and has more than just poetic significance. Scientifically, I love science, of course, it's a powerhouse that can significantly impact our well-being. So how this love works, its magic is that they talk about, longevity boost, being happy in a committed relationship can help you live longer. Um, so essentially happier people tend to end up with, situations, building relationships, whether it's partners, and then so that, or your community, so they often encourage each other to adopt healthier habits like eating well and getting adequate sleep. In terms of heart health, love isn't just about butterflies. It's about better cardiovascular health. People supporting each other, us supporting ourselves, and making positive things happen. Right. So your lifestyle changes can contribute to your improved heart health. It has blood pressure benefits. To help because you're in a good positive mood. It helps to lower your blood pressure. Right. It can come from things like talking to people, chatting with people, right? So a lot of that mental well-being, better mental wealth, improved sleep, pain reduction. It boosts your immune system, and of course, last but not least, healing power. So love isn't just emotion, it's a potent force that helps you heal. Whether it's emotional wounds or physical ailments, love plays a crucial role in recovery. So coming back, I want to ask you, Sandy, what made you feel the most empowering about sharing your journey, sharing your story, and what has happened since the sharing of your story?
So much has happened. I'm trying to figure out where to even start. Um, but I just felt myself getting stronger and stronger and far more confident than I'd ever felt before. And the responses from people, how people were responding to me were just in ways that they've never responded before. I never was told I was a wise person until I got sick. And then I was hearing it repeatedly, and that got my attention. At first it was like, oh, ha, 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 I'm not a wise person. And I still have a hard time because I think of a wise person as being, I don't know, much older, or I don't know. But it was that I just kept growing and growing and growing and fit into the world in a far different way than I had ever been fitting in before.
Wow. And so essentially, your journey encountered many, many challenges. And I guess maybe we can start with, when you first found out that you had a life-threatening brain tumor. You were 33 at the time.
Yes, I was. Many
And
moons ago.
and what happened? Like what was going through your mind, the situation in that stage, and what helped you, you know, kind of continue this journey?
What happened is I literally threw an entire set of dishes against the kitchen wall. And that was not something I generally would do. And so I did have my brain checked. I went to a gynecologist first, and she suggested I go to a neurosurgeon, and I got tested. And while still at the clinic, I got a phone call from the doctor that said I have a life-threatening, fast-growing, inoperable brain tumor. And I just wanted to run. That was my first reaction, was just to run. But what I did is I went to got a second opinion and a third opinion and a fourth opinion and a fifth opinion, and they all said the same thing. So you can imagine my state of mind. And one day I was sitting home. I'm a trained artist, fine artist, and I was thinking about all the paintings I had done in the past year. What have I done with my life? And I painted a painting of a fish, a dead fish hanging upside down by a rope. I painted some dead carnations in a vase. I painted a woman hanging onto a grave. And I painted a portrait of my grandmother who died of a brain tumor before I was even born. And the scariest moment of my life took place right then and there when I realized the theme of death was running through my paintings, and I never realized it before. But you know how is it Wile E. Coyote when he finds himself off the cliff and he pumps his little legs like woo, 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 trying to stay up off the cliff from falling.
Yeah.
I did that with my brain. I was tripping out and I knew this was dangerous. I was so scared and I knew I had to do something. And I immediately focused on, well, wait a minute. There's a God or some kind of higher power that's talking to me through my art. And I focused on that. And as soon as I made that connection, I've never felt more love in my life. So I went from fear to love. I mean, just feeling so much love. And I never wanted that feeling to end. And I wanted to connect myself to God's ankles. And the only way I knew how was by choosing love to be my guide. And I chose that moment.
It's and in talking about moments, right? When you made the shift and the decision to choose love, it takes quite a lot of strength and courage to always constantly choose love because it's so easy to fall into another realm of state, your mind just talks a lot, right? So I just there's so much courage that you have shown, just to be able to stay in the zone of love. And because of that, like, evolving through coming out of your brain tumor, you chose love. And then what kind of path did you choose to take in terms of, taking care of yourself regarding the brain tumor situation? Yeah. Like, did you choose to see doctors? Like, how did you travel through that segment of your journey?
I think the next step was wanting to be as authentic a person as I possibly could be, because I wanted to be who I was created to be before I died. Whether I died in a week or whether I died at age 100, I wanted to be who I was meant to be. And that meant speaking up for myself and learning how to say no
Setting boundaries.
and making choices that served me, which was, I'm almost embarrassed to say, that was kind of a new thing because I was such a people pleaser. For me, safety was to make sure everybody around me felt comfortable. So I wasn't always speaking my truth. But boy, I learned real fast. And yes, no doctor could help me, but I had just had a test in the hospital and it was a working hospital. And this doctor came in leading a group of interns and he was going to teach them something, but he grabbed the clipboard at the end of my bed and his face went white and he shooed everybody out of my room. And he had woken me up and I was pretty angry because I was excited thinking, oh, they're going to discuss my brain tumor and maybe I'll learn something. When he had his hand on the door handle, walking out when I shouted to him, hey, what do you think? Do you have any ideas for me? And the poor man, he just froze. I really felt badly for him. But then I was feeling guilty. And then I reminded myself, Sandy, you just told you're going to die. You have a right to shout. Anyway, he told me there was a doctor that but he didn't know the doctor's name, but he knew a doctor that knew a doctor at Mass General Hospital. And that's what I did. I got in touch with that doctor who told me of the doctor that eventually did beam my brain tumor, which meant which left it putting scar tissue over it so that it cut off the food supply and it dissipated.
I see. Wow, that's so it was kind of everything was unplanned, but happened, you were there, that doctor walked by, introduced you to other doctors that in turn led you to explain further to you what was going on inside.
Right, a doctor that was trying to get out of my room as quickly as possible. And it's a good thing I spoke up.
Yeah.
That was another reinforcement to speak up for yourself, and why I put that in my book too, so that others learn to speak up. It's not an easy thing to do.
That is so empowering and powerful. Um I I wanted to ask you, what was the particular moment that, that you knew you wanted to share this story publicly? Because I've seen, in your book, you talk about all of this. And of course, like, well, people are experiencing going through the trauma and the pain and the healing. Like, that's not where the story began, so to speak, when you put pen ink to paper. What was that? When was that particular moment?
Immediately. I
Oh,
really think it was the day I came home from the hospital because I didn't want other people to have to go through. It was a horrible, horrible feeling to be with discharged from a hospital for nothing. I always had the idea you went to the hospital to get better. You know what I mean? When people left the hospital, they were happier. I mean, that was I didn't even have aspirin in my house at the time I was diagnosed. I was so naive. I knew nothing about the medical world or doctors or anything. And yet here I was, I thought treated in a very cold, cavalier, cruel way. And I knew I couldn't change the system, but I knew I could write a book.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I didn't know. I knew I had to write a book. I had no experience writing a book.
That's let's I don't know. I just think thank you for writing this book because
Thank
it's
you.
it's not just you recounting your stories and this is what happened to me, but there are tools and exercises, so to speak. It's to for one to get real honest about themselves and what they're going through, and then how they can evolve and better understand themselves so that they can, kind of take that next step, right? So I'm gonna pause here for a moment because I have a little bit of technical issues with the connection right now. So I'm gonna just give me a bit of a second. I'll be resuming. We can pause. Apologize for this delay. Oops. To hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So I apologize that for that. Yeah. So no, I just going to I just find it extremely powerful that you were able to decide that you're going to share the story and you want to share this love and you want to share to other people how you want to help. And with that, I wanted to ask you, how have you continued to choose empowerment and positivity over the years, right? In those precise moments, you chose love, but how do you sustain that? Even when there's been setbacks, what is this vulnerability?
I'm so glad you said even though there have been setbacks, because that's what I was about to say. With every setback, with every single time I get upset, every single time I feel my body reacting to, pulling back to something that somebody even said, I look at it. Why is this threatening me? Why is this disturbing me? What's going on with me? I don't put the focus on the person that may have upset me. I put the focus on me so that I can learn and grow. So it never stops. It's forever growing. In fact, just this past week, I had a really I was going to say opportunity to grow when I was hacked. My computer got badly hacked. I mean, I could go on and on and on and bore you with all the details, but it was horrendous. And for 6 days, I didn't know whether or not I was going to be back on. I finally just yesterday found somebody that actually specializes in social media problems, which I didn't even know there was such a thing. Thank goodness there is. I highly recommend anybody to get in touch with somebody if they ever had any problems. It was like finding an angel. But I really, yes, there were moments of great frustration. That is the appropriate reaction, and I'm not going to shame myself for feeling that way. Yes, I even cried at times, but again, was the appropriate reaction. I've learned not to shame myself for reacting appropriately. Um, but I learned so much from it, from the ups and downs and the whole roller coaster ride I went through. I really learned that I needed to step back and really look at the whole picture because I was so focused on marketing my book. Every day I'd sit down and I would just for 6 to 8 hours marketing my book. And I really had to, this was, I believe, the universe's way of just saying, Sandi, you need to stop and think what you're doing. And that's what I did. And I have a much better game plan. Thank you very much. I went through heck hell to get through there, get to it, but I do have much better plan now. And that's how it works. That's how it always works.
Thank you for sharing that because what I'm hearing here is a daily tip practice that we can all exercise and set in motion to help deal with all the situations that can take place. I think many of us have probably encountered situations where there's like whether it's login issues online and whatnot kinds of those are very frustrating challenges that can impede with technology and but something that you can overcome because there's ways to resolve it right with patience and time. And I love how you gave that as an example because it's a very practical daily situation that that has occurred, right? So in terms of yeah, because in that example you can choose to stay fixated in the negative, like why does this always happen to me? I know in your book there was a you were saying it's not happening to me, but these things are happening for me, which aligns with what you just shared, right? Things happen,
Yes,
they wanted to, the universe wants you to take a break from things, right? So maybe certain injuries happen, not because, you want to be in a bad state,
right,
not
correct.
well, but and we don't wish that upon any of anybody, of course. But sometimes, unfortunately, things happen externally and they happen to us. But it also help us strengthen whatever is internal in the center of our core, so that we can choose empowerment and positivity to continue to flow through. Right. So, we were talking about. I want to touch on like vulnerability. What is this vulnerability that is? Because I feel like vulnerability um, is
Is a
this
gift, is
it's
another gift, right? Whereas, we habitually do anything we can not to feel vulnerable. That's just how we were all brought up, and perhaps that is even how our nervous systems work to protect us. And yet, I have found the more I leave myself vulnerable, the more I grow because I'm not playing it safe and staying in the same old place where I've been stuck. It helps me to move forward, which seems totally counterproductive, but it really works. And the
yeah,
same thing with facing your fear and feeling your fear. People don't want to feel their so called negative emotions. And yet we were given emotions for a reason. We were born with all these emotions, and it's not a mistake. And so by feeling our fear, allowing that wave to just go right through us without resisting it, because what we resist persists, it,
yeah.
it, it will just pass through us much more quickly than if we hold on to it and struggle and fight it and feel sorry for ourselves. It really works if we just allow ourselves to feel all of our feelings.
That is very beautiful. And, just coming to define what vulnerability is, because I feel like it can mean different things. But generally speaking, Cambridge Dictionary says that vulnerability signifies being open to risk or harm, exactly what you have captured. And in being vulnerable, it refers to a state of emotional exposure. It involves being open, authentic, and willing to share your feelings, fears, and experiences with others. So key points is, you know, being vulnerable means that you've opened yourself to a quality of state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. And I think that's why people, humans, we shut down because we're trying to protect ourselves. Now, in regards to emotional vulnerability, it's about sharing emotions, expressing your feelings even when they're difficult or uncomfortable, talking about mistakes, being honest about your past errors and failures, re-
Yes.
reconnecting with others, reaching out to someone that you've fallen out with, being honest about needs, communicating your boundaries, which you also touched on earlier, and expectations in relationships. And of course, that can change, over time. And the importance is vulnerability is that it allows you to I guess for people to have deeper connections, that are authentic and full of love, and it fosters stronger relationships, acceptance, and emotional resilience, which of course, you've captured your everything so perfectly and beautifully. And I think that's what it is. I have a question now. This came to my mind is that what do we do when we're being vulnerable? We found courage and strength to open up, to be there for people, to reach out to people, but people shut down. So how do we get?
because people are unwilling to be vulnerable with us, which happens unfortunately frequently. However, and it used to really frustrate me.
Mhm.
But again, there's a gift there because you can see where they're at. You have information about that person that you didn't have before. You didn't see their vulnerability before. And now you know how to talk to them rather than just blah, rather than just putting it all out. You know to be gentle and have compassion for them.
That-
And people really respond to that, because they're scared. And when you respond with love and compassion and you're gentle with them, they open up more and more and more. And eventually they'll be vulnerable with you too.
And so in doing that, they gain courage and strength to come to you, possibly. You are also recharging and gaining courage and, gathering your own strength because when somebody shuts down on you and you're offering love, it's also a form of rejection, right? So
If you take it personally, yes.
yes. And then that's the thing. I think the natural possible default is kind of feeling rejected, right? Discouraged, right? Not empowered, right? So then we ourselves are there for ourselves, right? Like you said, be gentle and take care of ourselves. We be strong and come out of it, and then we continue to share that gentleness of love and encouragement and support, right? Yeah. And this is the thing, it's like giving and taking, there's always a balance, there's no equal balance to anything in that sort of realm. But kind of, I love what you said, because what you were touching on was like, empathizing what they could be
E-
going.
exactly. And it's the same similar thing. I used to get so frightened when somebody would get angry at me. And when they would start yelling at me, I mean, I would be a puddle on the floor. But now my background is a painting. So now I used to paint portraits. So now I just study their face. And people are really comical looking when they're angry. And I am not rude enough to start laughing because I don't do that. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But it really creates a calmness in me. And I realize I can't make somebody yell at me. This person is choosing to yell at me. Happy people do not yell. This person is not a happy person. This person is scared. This person is uncomfortable. Again, it helps me deal with them rather than responding like, "Oh, can you do that to me? I'm so scared," whatever. It's not about me. And the way that anybody acts, it's not about me. And once you take that variable out of the situation, it's so much easier to handle.
Yeah. And that's, just going back a little bit, you talking about the painting. Because I myself paint too, so it takes much more effort to paint an angry face. So just like it takes so much effort and energy in your body to be in a state of anger, right? So, and you're absolutely right. I 100% agree. Like when somebody is reacting in a situation where they're yelling and, saying mean things, and they're choosing to do that, and their body is not in the state of balance and harmony, and they're not happy, something is going on with them internally and possibly externally, in combination, which is triggering them to react in such a manner. So you're right, we need to also um, as learn to maintain and regulate, so that we're not, and set those boundaries so that we're not receiving that personally, because it's not really targeted at us. it is in that moment that is what they were going through, right? So um I did,
What really helped me at one time, if I may say,
of course,
it
yeah.
this is highly simplified, and I will admit it's highly simplified. And I do give a lot of credit to the Course of Miracles because this is where I first heard it, although I never took the Course of Miracles. But that's beside the point. People are either coming from love or fear. And when I first learned how to feel my feelings, really would sit down and would try to feel my feelings when I had to really work at that, I would think, am I feeling love or am I feeling fear? Or when somebody was, trying to talk to me, I would think, wait a minute, are they being loving? Or are they being fearful? And it really helped just to simplify the situation because I was able to understand it so much easier without all the different layers that we generally deal with.
Yeah, and I think importantly, I know in your book you refer to regulating our nervous system. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, because how do we not let our
Sure,
emotions take over?
sure. This is a tricky one because our nervous systems have a bias of looking for danger in order to protect us. It's a loving thing that we were given to protect us. And yet it makes us scared far more often than we need to be, particularly in this day and age, because there aren't any tigers out trying to kill us. But there are a lot of emotional things that we're dealing with. We're dealing with a lot of stress. And so a lot of us are hypervigilant. And those of us that have been through trauma, I was hypervigilant for years. Any little thing, somebody raised an eyebrow and I would freak out. I mean, so this is how I learned so much about regulating the nervous system because I realized it was always looking for danger and I didn't want to live my life that way. The nervous system remembers things that happened in our childhood and respond to that, even though it's not appropriate today, even though we're safe. But it responded when we were children because we didn't have tools, but we do now. And that's what really saved me when I realized, wait a minute, I have tools to help regulate my nervous system. And so what I do, and I still do it to this day, every morning at 8 o'clock, I do a meditation, an online meditation. A woman from Nova Scotia, in fact, Lynn Fraser, LynnFraserStillPoint.com. I'm on every morning at 8 o'clock Eastern time for 25 minutes. She does it's more than a guided meditation because it's teaching us about our bodies and how we respond and how to treat ourselves lovingly and how to be calm and just to pick up the different ways that we're not being good to ourselves. She's just a wealth of knowledge. Helps me so much, and it's free. Everybody is invited to stop in at Lynn Fraser at stillpoint.com every morning at 8 o'clock Eastern point time. And I have learned more about my nervous system and regulating it from her. One thing to do when we get hijacked by our emotions, as so many of us do, just think of your feet. It's one way of grounding yourself. I mean, who would even, when our emotions are going here, if you think of your feet, you're suddenly grounded and you feel much more safer. You can even tell yourself, I'm safe now. I am safe now. You can hold your own hand. You can hug yourself. You focus on your breathing. And if your exhalation is longer than your inhalation, your body will automatically soften with every exhalation. We have this tool with us all the time. It's just a matter of remembering to use our breath. There's so many tools.
That's such a beautiful share. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, waking up for meditation for your practice, daily practice, is it like a live meditation?
On
Okay,
Zoom. Mhm.
that's beautiful. And then that's a community of support, and then you start and set the tone for the rest of the day, right? And then
Exactly.
in regulating the nervous system, as you said, there are so many tools that we can use. There's one particular one that I really like and I share with friends and family. Is It's called is 478 meditation
Yes.
technique. Yeah,
Yes.
I like it. And for the audience, if you don't know what that is, it's very useful. You can do it discreetly. Nobody knows what's going on unless you choose to breathe out loudly. But so essentially 478 is it's breathing in for 4 seconds, right? And then holding it for 7 seconds, and then breathing out everything for 8 seconds, and then you do this. So I find that for me personally, like if something happens and I do remember to, tap into this 4-7-8 method of breathing, it really helps calm down. And it the first time you're questioning like, does this work? The second set, you're like, okay, I'm in it. And then the third set, you're like, wait, this is actually making a difference. So have patience to keep going, to do things to, not allow the hijack of our emotions, so that it takes over and consumes us, so that, maybe we say things that we don't want to say. We get upset when other people are just trying to show us love, right? And then we kind of have an outburst, right? So there's a Japanese proverb that I want to share here that I really like, and it's always on my mind. One kind word can warm 3 winter months. But if you say something, now this is my share, if you say something negative or unkind, people will always, this is from another book I was reading, um, they said that people remember how you made them feel. So that feeling of remembering how you made them feel can be positive or negative, and you get to choose that, right? So by regulating a nervous system.
Right. And we all know how good it feels, particularly when we're feeling down on ourselves, when somebody points out something kind to us. We all know how good that feels. And I really believe we were created to share that with one another. I mean, proof of that is the preemie babies, the babies that are born premature, and they just need to be held. They have volunteers in hospitals that just hold these preemie babies, and the babies will live longer and get stronger, healthier, or quicker if they're held. I
Yeah,
mean, we were meant to support and love one another.
that's a beautiful share because it triggered a memory of giving love. My aunt in Taiwan, she works in the pediatrician department, so she's constantly coming across babies, and I'm not sure if everybody is aware, but there's oftentimes where baby is born, they don't have a brain, right? There's just a gaping hole, but the baby still comes out, still alive, maybe for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour or two. I don't know. But she would share the story. The nurses would hold the babies, the baby would be crying, and then to help ease, whatever phase that they have left, being alive. They sometimes will feed it ice cream, something happy, and the baby quiets down, right? And then is happy for that whatever moment, however long the brain and the heart chooses to beat, and continue to work. And then they pass. So that's just a beautiful, sorry, it's just so vulnerable, but it triggered that memory
That's
about,
a wonderful story.
yeah, how beautiful it is to, no matter how long or short, to choose to give love in whatever ways and forms. So I think it's really important. And I, yeah, like you talking about holding a baby, that's like, yeah, this,
And what
of
your
course,
story triggered with me
yeah,
is if those nurses focused on how many babies were born without a brain and how many died, they wouldn't be able to do their job. But
yeah,
they focus no doubt on the love and the fact that they have an opportunity to share their love with such a vulnerable being. I'm sure that's what inspires them to do their jobs. They
yeah.
focus on the love because that gives them strength.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't have to process to react to choose to give love. Just in this recent situation, I know like 5 days ago in Taiwan, we had the biggest earthquake, and there's crazy videos out on the internet where buildings were collapsing in Hualien, and people were panicking. There was a CCTV camera footage of a hospital or a baby care center, so to speak, and there were nurses on site. Immediately, when it was shaking and there was babies in the incubators and whatnot, the little beds, 3 nurses dashed in, and all they did was like trying to like stabilize so that the babies weren't frightened, kind of thing. So, like, do they have time to think like, oh, what are the stats to this and what are the dangers of that? No, it was just like, we're gonna choose love, we're gonna protect, we're gonna try to save. Yeah, of course, luckily, gratefully, I didn't see anything fall onto the babies, but I'm just saying that immediately the reaction, the inclination was to nurse.
Intuition, yes,
Yeah, exactly.
yes,
So that was
yes.
very beautiful. Now, I want to ask you if you
Mm.
could tell your younger self anything, what would it be? And I guess to help frame this, like the period before you found out you had brain tumor, and then, you know, and of course after that, what would you be telling yourself? Look,
My younger self, to have faith in love, automatic, and to have faith in yourself and to trust yourself and to let love guide you. I mean, that how could I not tell that to my younger one? Because that's what I learned so much that's helped me. And of course, nobody told me that when I was younger. And can you imagine if children were taught that when they were younger? Just have faith in love, trust in yourself. And I really believe that we're all created differently for a reason. I mean, we could have been created all to look the same, or in the same height, and the same, right? But
yeah,
there's a reason we were created differently, and that's because we all bring different gifts to the world. And it's so important in order to fully give that gift to the world for us to be ourselves. So that's another thing I would say to the child, the younger me, just be yourself, be as authentic as you possibly can be and have faith in yourself and let love guide you.
let love guide you. I love that. And this trigger a piece, an article or that someone wrote some years back. It was because I was thinking deeply because the way we choose love and how love guide, it's also situational, like cultural dependent kind of thing. So I kind of want to share here, like for Asian culture, and it's not to say everyone's experiencing the same, but traditionally speaking, we don't really communicate and say I love you, right? Um, or I miss you. Like of course people do that, but I just remember growing up your parents loved you, but they very or never say, very infrequently, they'll never say like, I love you or you did great. You were excellent. It was constantly like, no, that wasn't good enough, right? So in Asia, it's a completely different culture, so to speak. Like many times children after school they would go into tutor centers to keep studying because they want them to be better, strengthen their skills and talents kind of thing instead of saying like I love you, right? You're good enough. So it's different. In the article I read, it was about this gentleman. He wrote about how he was growing up. He always wanted and prayed for his parents to validate and tell him that they love him because he grew up in North America. And in North America, it's the same thing for me. When I first came here, everyone was like, "I love you," and they, giving you hugs, and I'm like, "Whoa, what's that?" You know? 'Cause in Asia, it's different, right? Like we kind of less expressive that way, right? Vocally. And then so anyways, he was here, he went to school here, was educated here, and he was wondering how come his parents never acknowledged the good grades, the tests, that he did excellent on or some, words that he won. They never once said that. So he would keep striving for that and pushing for it. And then when he was an adult, he achieved the job, right? He got promoted and still he called his mom and dad and they never once said, son, you did excellent. I'm very proud of you. So he felt so discouraged, defeated, and unloved. But, I want to highlight the key point here isn't that he wasn't unloved. He shared that he was loved because he realized that. And his parents, because of the culture and their experiences growing up, and things and traumas and events that happened in their life shaped them to become whom they are, right? In his life. And just because they didn't express love in that way, that never meant that they didn't love him. So they were proud of him,
Yes.
they just couldn't express it to the full extent because they didn't have that, somebody maybe to guide them to show them. So, and he talks, I think he wraps it up with, at the end of the day, is it is also this love that we're talking about is about self-love, that you're enough for yourself. And it wasn't really just about his parents validating it. And just because they didn't express, it never meant that they didn't love him. They did, just in different ways of expressions, right? So, yeah.
And you made a good point there because there are people whose parents have told them they love them and have poured love on them, but because they couldn't love themselves, there was some type of a block, they didn't feel loved. So it really comes down to us. Only we can really determine and feel the love, allow ourselves to feel the love or have the courage. Because for some people, it really does take courage. It's uncomfortable because they feel vulnerable.
Yes. And I think I was thinking earlier today, I was like, you know what? We must be generous with the love that we give to ourselves. This does not mean that you're a selfish person, right? But rather, like, if you take the barriers away um, from loving yourself, you receive that love, nurture and grow that love, and you can also give that love out back to other people that need it.
More so when you love yourself. Yes.
Yes, and then when you do that, I think it's even more authentic and genuine because you're
Yes.
giving from that state rather than pretending to love or pretending to show love, right? And care when you cannot even have the strength to do so internally yourself, right? So,
Yes. Our immune systems work more efficiently when we're happy. So we were meant to be happy. And I told that to somebody who just said, "Thank you so much for telling me that. I feel so much better." Because he was so he was guilt ridden. He didn't feel he was brought up that it was being selfish to love oneself. But we're really, I think it's scientifically proven that we were really meant to, because our immune systems work more efficiently.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We are this type of creature. So, how did the writing, and sharing of your story process affect your healing and transformation journey? I also wanted to ask you if you could expand on about your expressive art therapy that you do. Yeah, tie in together.
Sure, that's really funny. I didn't even know the term expressive arts when I did a mural in the library in my hometown, in which Associated Press picked it up and sent the story across the country 4 times.
Wow.
And because I was painting this, I was trying to express what I went through when I had the brain tumor. It was people walked in and they said they just felt so much love in the gallery, from the mural.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was only there for 30 days, and then I erased it. So people from all over, 10,000 people came to the gallery. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And then 2020 also did a segment on it, and it was in the top 3 most popular shows that year. Now I lost my train of thought. Why am I talking about that? What was the question again, please?
No, I said, yeah, no, this ties in perfectly. I said, how did this writing and sharing the process affect your healing and transformation?
Oh, so
Yeah.
these 2 women walked in and wanted to interview me for a book on expressive arts, and I said, "Sure, but what's that?" And they both started laughing, and they said, "You did it in a huge way." And expressive arts is actually, whereas traditionally when we think of art, we think of the piece that we actually painted, whereas expressive arts, it's the process of actually doing the painting, which is where the focus is. In other words, you through the art you access that inner wisdom within you.
Okay.
You allow your body, your hands, to choose the colors. You could paint with your non-dominant hand. You could, whatever. It's just like free form dancing. You just let it happen, and it's extremely powerful and extremely healing, I found. But I
Wow.
didn't even realize what I was doing when I did it, as far as the mural is concerned.
So there was like no hold back, but you were transforming as you were expressing.
Right.
That
Right.
is,
And I think there was a level of me when I was sick that knew I had to, that knew the power of art, because I was delving into it.
yeah, yeah. And no, thank you for sharing. I wanted to share also your video clip that's on your website. Um, the one that where you're at the beach.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I thought maybe right now would be a good time to do so. So I'm just gonna quickly play
Oh,
that.
can I say one thing before you started?
Absolutely, yeah.
Just
Please
an
tell us more.
aside. This is just an aside, a little silly. But the house that you see up on that cliff
Yeah,
on the beach, that's owned by Taylor Swift.
that's a wow. Okay, so we're gonna take a look. That's and this is this close to where your area is community?
I live about 12 minutes from there, yes.
Wow.
But I
Okay.
live in a very different neighborhood than Taylor Swift does.
As we all do.
She said it's her favorite place in the world, Rhode Island, which is
Okay.
where I'm from. Yeah.
Sorry, what island?
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island. Okay, so we're gonna go have a glimpse of where Sandy goes to sometimes, and of course, where is Taylor Swift's favorite place.
Yes.
I'm just gonna go here, and are you able to see my screen?
I do now, yes. Oh, you
Perfect.
can see my website.
This is Sandy's website, and we're just showing a beautiful.
It was a neurologist who, in 1986, first told me I had an inoperable, fast growing, life threatening brain tumor and only had 6 months to a year to live. While I was in the hospital for the next 2 days, no one even talked to me about the elephant in the room, which only increased my fears. Later, 4 other neurologists told me the exact same thing, that I'd be dead within a year. I decided they were all being narrow minded. I'd already learned that everything was made of energy, including me, and that love is the most powerful form there is. I felt that surge of energy when we fall in love or when someone is attentive to our needs. So I chose love to heal me, and it worked.
So that was beautiful. So thank you for sharing that and capturing that essence of moment and continuing to choose love. I did want to ask you too as well. You know, you had encountered your brain tumor, overcome that with you know natural healing and as well as medical professional care, and then you came and you had suddenly had breast cancer. What was that like?
I got radiation damage from being having the, the treatment to my brain. And part of the radiation damage, the worst part was getting breast cancer. And I had two doctors tell me I had to get a mastectomy. And by that time, I really knew my body. I'd been focusing on getting to know my body. And you had said speaking to my body, but it really is listening to my body and listening to my body's wisdom. And every cell in my body screamed no when the doctor suggested I get a mastectomy. And I knew at that point I had to listen. Yeah, I had to listen. But within 5 months and using just a natural treatment that I found in a book, I was cancer free. So
Wow,
my body knew what it was talking about, and I was right to listen.
that's um that's so powerful because of course this isn't replacing professional medical treatment, but at the same time this also triggered my I read it about Gabriel Maté, right? He talks about stress, the cost of hidden stress, and then in his books and research he talks about how your mind really can help you get through things and heal and whatnot kind of thing. So I feel like that's kind of what it is, like you set the tone and set the intention of what your body wants to do. Like I feel like our body is like basically a supercomputer system. So you get to program it and to align so that it flows through that direction for healing.
I
And
kind of look at it a little different. I believe that
yeah,
there is already perfection. I mean, if you look out the window, the skies, everything is perfect. I believe the programming is aligning with that perfection, which is me perhaps kind of what you're saying, but I think it's more getting aligned with what is rather than deciding. And yes, there is a certain amount of, yes, I'd like to heal, so there is that. Or I used to imagine polar bears eating away at my at my brain tumor. I don't know why they were polar bears. Oh, they were white blood cells, polar bears, eating away at my at my brain tumor.
a
So
visual
yes,
technique. Yeah.
so there
So
is a lot to that. Yes.
that's interesting. And I think maybe instead of programming, uh a better way to put it would be situated, it would be, I think, fine tuning. Fine
Yes,
tuning.
yes, that's good.
seeking balance, kind of thing, like the yin and yang of life, looking for those pieces. They're never 50-50 equal split in that realm, but just fine tuning, right? Um, and I wanted to ask you, like, based on all of your experiences here, like that you've encountered, what message do you have for women and men around the globe?
Love themselves. Really, what I did one years ago, I would keep track of all the times I wasn't nice to myself and immediately flood myself with love. I mean, I used to, I would do something silly, make a mistake as we all do. And I go, oh, you idiot. And yet so many people do that. I still hear people doing that. We wouldn't call our worst enemy an idiot when they made a mistake. I mean, we just don't do that. And our body hears that. And our body responds so well when it's love. Just like if you break your arm, don't call it your bad arm. Your arm's doing everything it can to heal. Don't call it bad. The same thing, just be as loving and show as much compassion as you can possibly for yourself. Another example, I still will have a trauma response. I'll still get triggered about something. Um, as I think I was this week, like having the rug pulled out from underneath my feet when I got hacked. I was totally helpless again, as I'd been in the past. My nervous system, took off. Saw it as a fear. I needed to be protected, and yet because it remembers all my experiences from the past, I really am acting appropriately according to my past. So I don't shame myself if I did lash out at somebody this week. We ended up laughing hysterically over it. And, he gave me a hug, because he knew what was going on. He goes, I understand you're frustrated, because I was frustrated and I wasn't getting my computer fixed. But I understood that was from a trauma response. I'm acting appropriately. I don't like it, but I'm acting appropriately. My nervous system remembers that this is a fear.
Yeah. And that's so very true, because I'm just visualizing a situation where if I was really angry, for example, and instead the other person came and hugged me, you might recoil, but then you'll suddenly just calm down, you know what I mean? Like it resets that emotion. And then yeah, so I think it's so beautiful that it's not just us about loving yourself and but also the other person being there
Oh,
to acknowledge and empathize and think ahead. If we do that for each other, one another all the time, there'd be so much more harmony and peace in the world.
and as you know from reading my book, my family did not respond that way, and it made it so much more difficult for me. They took everything I was going through personally, including my diagnosis. It scared them so much, and they didn't have the tools to deal with it. So, there's fight, flight, or freeze, and they did all three. They really fought with me, and they would just desert me, or they would just, say nothing. And so it was really nice when somebody, would, and he didn't immediately hug me when I was angry. He knew better than that, because that could be dangerous.
Yeah,
But
that was
it, it
good.
it took a few minutes until he realized it was safe. And actually, what he did is he did say, Sandy, I understand you're really frustrated. And he saw that me relax and then gave me a hug, which was nice. But it
That,
was so nice to be acknowledged, because for years I wasn't, as I said, by my family. And it was just so wonderful to be.
yeah, and then just kind of looping back, and this is exactly like don't just shut down, right? Calm, wait for the right gap, and then go in with love. Like, yeah, right?
Right, right. Connect in whatever way. And what he did is, I understand you, Sandy, which was really nice.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And
And this was a kid. This was a kid who came to fix my computer.
I was like, oh wow, okay, that's
That's
beautiful.
I mean,
Yeah,
but I've known him for years because I go to the store, but he's
yeah,
never seen me yell. I mean, he's never seen me that upset, but it was so sweet. I mean, he's a college kid.
yeah. That is so sweet. He's ahead of the game
Absolutely.
in this game, this skill of love. I wanted to just kind of go back and touch on because and acknowledge that segment where you talked about the lack of support from our families. And I think a lot of times we have definitions of what family support should be like and how to do certain things, just like how people have expectations about how we should do or react or give support and help. And you mentioned something really important, that, the steps to push through when these fears and challenges are holding you back. You said that you embrace and accept that we cannot, tell people how to give love and show love, right? And show care because that's how they choose. But we
No,
can.
it's not necessarily true. Some people just aren't capable.
Mm,
And that's what I had to finally figure out with my family. I mean, I thought they were all loving and we all loved each other, but all of a sudden I realized they were so scared, which is, I mean, I think they were just so scared and they didn't have the tools to deal with it. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it was, I thought it was a choice for a long time. I'm thinking, why,
yeah,
surely they know when a family member is ill, you support them.
yeah,
Why, what's the disconnect here? And for years I was so hurt by it. But I finally had to realize not everybody, their nervous systems had gone haywire. I mean, they really, and they didn't know how to self-regulate.
yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's, in a general context, and of course, not everybody is in the same situation. Is that if someone is going through something, a lot of challenges, or dealing with past trauma, or or not dealing with them, and they're holding on to that, and they're not in a happy state, and they encounter somebody that needs support, right? They're not able to have the capacity to do that. They're just incapable because all the situation and circumstances that are they're facing in their life. So what comes to mind is like sometimes, how come they didn't call me, or how come they didn't care when I told them this? And maybe the mind is quick to say like, oh, they don't care, but you're right, they don't know how to care. They're scared. They don't know what you're going through, and that scares them. So
They,
sometimes that fear holds them back, you know
right, right. My mother was like your mother in that she never said, I love you. And after I got sick, I said, I need to hear this. I need to hear it. And it hurt even more after I said that because she still never said it. And that's why I came to the conclusion I had to figure out that she couldn't. And to her, that was just too intimate. And intimacy meant vulnerability. And she just couldn't go there, which was really sad when you think about it. So therefore, I felt sorrier for her than I did when I was feeling so bad for myself, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? I felt so hurt, and then all of a sudden, no, no, no. Yeah, I feel badly for her.
Absolutely, that's empathy and compassion all together, um interconnected, that you were expressing. And the fact that you were able to think so deeply for your mother, that's a lot of courage. That's because I was going to ask, like, how do we have courage no matter where we are, who you are, what circumstances you're in? And in that particular circumstance, you build courage by seeing through it deeply from her perspective and angle, right? So yeah, that's just beautiful, very beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Very powerful. um
Thanks.
how do we help others? And this applies to the current situation with the pandemic. I think a lot of people are going through challenges internally, externally, all
Yes,
sorts of
yes.
things. And it came from the pandemic, things that they were carrying pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and then post-pandemic. They're still dealing and evolving because so much has changed. What we know in history, in practice, in the past might not be applicable to, certain situations and circumstances now, right? And you come
Mm-hmm.
to realize things, so you're scared. So how do we help others and offer support if anyone is, I mean, it's a heavy question to, if anyone is experiencing doubt in their life, their career, or their situation, like what can we do in a day? Yeah.
And I know I sound like a broken record, but the only thing we can do for each other is just to love and support one another and not to take their stuff personally. And people really see that. They really feel it when that shift is made, when all of a sudden you're not responding the same way, like, you're angry at them for getting, acting the way they're acting. Just realize that person's struggling. That person is in pain. And I love that person. I really care about that person. Just be available to them. Offer them love as often as you can. That's not to say, here's a caveat, you bare your neck to them, because that's what I used to do. and then I'd be and then I'd be so hurt when they would, hurt me, and I think, look at all that I did for them, go, yeah, So it's important we spoke about boundaries earlier. It's important that you set boundaries. You don't play the tit for tat game. Look how loving I was to you. Now you need to be loving for me, because that person's not capable. That
Yeah.
person may not be capable for a long, long time or ever.
Yeah. And that's a great point to touch on, like, tit for tat, because I feel like, by doing that, people handicap, you just disable yourself, because now you're shutting down too, because this happened, you didn't do this for me, you're not there. And then by reacting this way, that also promotes and encourages the other person to treat you the same. So people get into this constant conflict where, oh, they didn't message me back, so I stopped talking to them. They can choose to talk to me, but at the same time, after some time, after the dust has settled, wherever the situation is going, if applicable, like you said, we can choose to give love and be available. That's the key word that I heard earlier.
That,
Available love.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
So
And
that's
that doesn't mean you need to call them every 5 minutes or, go out,
yeah,
but just be available
yeah,
while you're also taking care of yourself and your own needs.
yeah, yeah.
It's love is not just all about feeding the other person love. Love is taking care of ourselves too.
Yes. So that you can continue to give love, express love, and continue to love yourself.
And love can mean saying no, because saying no and setting boundaries creates an environment where I can love you more.
That's so very true. Yeah. Yes, it fosters an environment to continue the growth and expansion of that. Yeah, I always think like, just wrapping up to our talk before we talk about your book and other projects, is that life is a garden, you know? You choose to water it, you can choose to, plant seeds, cultivate, you know, it grows, it doesn't grow, something comes out, you harvest, right? And you can plant more seeds and continue the process.
Mm,
How much
mm.
you choose to water your garden, if you forget to water your plants, they die, they dry out, right? And that's the same for us as human beings in this earth. Um, you
But
can
it's also important to protect yourself from the sun.
that is correct. I love that. There you go.
You can't keep giving and giving and giving to that garden. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, this is expressive art through verbal communication right there. We just painted a beautiful painting of a garden and the sun. And
Yeah,
absolutely. And then
yes.
because when we water our own garden, we can be in a healthy state and, hey, that garden needs some water, you know? And then we share that, which is love in an indirect form, right? So to speak, so in a
That's
poetic
lovely.
way.
That's
Yeah,
good. That's
yeah.
good.
There you go. So thank you for that. And I just wanted to ask you, who should read your book?
Hmm. It initially was written for people who are going through a life-threatening illness. However, I also became happier and happier and happier and happier and stronger as I wrote it. And that's what people are responding to. And I've already gotten, I think, 11 5-star reviews, and not one of the people, thank you. And not one of the people's going through a life-threatening illness. So
Yeah,
as I said, I think it's really for everyone, although when you market a book, you're not supposed to say that.
yeah,
But that's all right. That's all right. And the other thing too is, how we all have gone through that horrible feeling when a loved one is diagnosed with a life-threatening illness and we don't know what to do. Now you have something you can do. You can buy my book and
yeah,
you can give that to them. And it really will be helpful.
yeah. And not gonna lie, it's a solid tool of shares of your journey, and then the exercises to help that. So of course, if one is experiencing that situation where someone is dying from an illness, absolutely this book will help you. And personally, I think your book can help many different people. You don't have to. And this is where I always emphasize in my talks is think outside the box. You don't have to necessarily experience the exact same situation, the exact same journey, be in the same body to be able to find tools, takeaways that you can help to apply to enhance and empower and inspire yourself in your life, and so that you can share to with other people too as well, to empower and inspire, and the it continues and so forth and so on, right, kind of thing. So
Hmm.
yeah, so you don't, and open yourself up. That's why I say think outside the box to see and experience what other people are experiencing, even though that may possibly never happen to you. So that's why it's important to, we were talking earlier about looking at two sides of the situation. We look at negative things, negative news, but we don't take that in ourselves. We also look at the positive, right? So you mentioned, yeah, to like to love, to hate, you give love, right, kind of thing. If you see anger, give it support, right? Give it calmness, right? So it treats it. If there's
Feel it. Don't
fire,
push it away. Right. Feel
back.
it. Feel it, and it'll pass much more quickly through your body. If you feel the so-called negative emotions, it'll just pass through.
Exactly. And if you can see, like, anger, for example, is like fire, right? What good is it if we are a forest and we see fire and then we treat it with fire? What's that going to do? It's just burn the whole forest down, right? But if you see
Right.
fire and you bring water, right? The calmness, the water, right? The H2O, that's going to help put out the flames, right? We're not
And
going to.
the positive thing I see about anger is it really does point out oftentimes where you have been miswronged when something has happened that you're not even aware of it until you got angry about it, or you were aware of it, but you didn't realize how much it was really affecting you.
Yeah.
So when you look at it, that I really believe we were given all these emotions for a reason. There's really a gift behind them all. You just have to look for it.
Yeah, and I think it's a form of defense mechanism, right? And then so just fine tuning it, when and
Hey,
what.
why am I angry? Why am I feeling so defensive? And if you keep the focus on yourself and not on the person that you're angry at, because they're just a catalyst, the information where you're going to learn is all within you.
Yeah, yeah. And then that suppression causes those outbursts, and then but that's the time and opportunity to
Yes,
find
you got it. You
always
got it.
use. Yeah. So there we go. We're on the same. Thank
Now
you.
we have been. You're good. You're good.
Yeah, beautiful. I really enjoy our talk. And is there anything else you want to add? How do we get a copy of your book? Do you have any other projects that you're working on that you want to share with us?
Sure, sure. How you get a copy of my book? My name is Sandi Gold, SandiGold. And you just go to my website, sandigold.com. That's the easiest way. You can get it on Amazon, but for some reason, Amazon, you have to put in Sandi Gold, I chose love. And half the time people just put in I chose love and they can't find my book. I just send them to my website. While you're at your, when it comes in softcover, audio, and ebook. And while you're at my website, you can sign up for my free e-newsletter where I do give away a copy of free book every month.
Yay.
And I will be answering your questions. So if you have any questions, you'll get my email address when you sign up, when you get your first newsletter. And then you can ask me questions,
That's
which I,
beautiful.
which I will be answering in the newsletter and probably eventually on TikTok. At least that's the plan.
Okay, so that's the direction.
Yeah. Yes.
We're gonna Sandy Go. It's gonna be on TikTok, and so to get a copy of her book, go to sandygold.com and sign up
Okay.
with the newsletter because she does monthly draws of giving a book away. So that's very exciting. This book is very an important tool, no matter what you're going through in life, because no one is perfect, and I love let love guide you. Choose love, and yeah, I oh that's her book right there. So uh, and so thank you very much,
My
Sandy.
feet. Those
Yeah.
are my feet
Oh,
too.
I was it
Those are my feet too. There's a painting I
kind of
did.
blurry. You might have to back away from the camera. There you go.
There.
Stay.
Those are
Stay
my feet in the water on the
there.
same beach, on the same beach that you saw me walking on.
Oh, did you want to share quickly just about that picture?
Did
You
I finish it?
like you painted that, right?
Right, for the cover.
For the cover, right? So, and that was what you were talking about, looping back what we were discussing earlier, noticing your feet, right? Was that what
Oh,
it is? Grounding.
interesting. Interesting. Whereas that's very good. I hadn't even put that together. I was thinking of, I was watching people as soon as they come to the beach, they just run right down to the water and they go, ah. And
Yeah,
that's what my book is about, finding ways that you can just go, ah, and help yourself.
yeah.
That's what I was thinking when I painted it, because that's what I love to do too. As soon as I get to the beach, I just run right down and put my feet in the water.
That is a beautiful memory, and that you kind of just stirred up. And I'm gonna leave the audience with that. Remember the time when you walked on a warm sandy beach and how good it felt, the soft sand beneath your feet. And then
Mm,
how when the water came in, that sensation, that
mm.
gentleness of the waves coming into, over your feet, and then you're so firmly planted, leaving an imprint on the sand, even though it was a moment in history. Okay, really think about those feelings. So yeah, because
That's wonderful. That's great. Yes.
that's what it reminded me. So thank you very much for sharing. I really sincerely appreciate you, Sandy, and thank you for writing this book.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. And to the audience, I will be sharing the Sandy's links again. So yeah, have a beautiful, beautiful weekend.
Thanks so much. You too.
Take care. Bye for now.
Bye bye.
Bye.